Hey, y'all. Welcome to episode 9 of the Working Mamas podcast. I am your host, Nikki Winston, and today is for career convos. I'm answering some questions about career moves and things that people have asked me about side hustles and interviewing and all this good stuff related to careers, which I think is pretty timely because episode 8 was recorded at the end of June. We were halfway through the year, and it was a great time to do a mid year review. So now that I'm getting a week later, a week or two later, a ton of questions about career moves and how do you think I should do this or do that, I felt the need to just take some of those questions and things that people want advice about and just record an episode just to delve into some of these things. These are some pretty frequent questions that people ask me, whether you're just starting out in your career, whether you're seasoned and you're 10, 15, 20 years into your career. So I'm going to talk about that today. Before I get into the episode, I just want to let y'all know kind of what I've been up to. So I had gone off of social media for a few weeks. I didn't intend to, but I had a lot going on as far as working out. I'm 6 weeks into a consistent workout, so I am loving myself for that. Mom life, getting ready for back to school, working on my CPA review course. It's been a lot. But this course that I'm working on for CPA candidates who need the coaching, the tutoring, the support to pass the exam. It's a huge undertaking. If you're not familiar with the Certified Public Accountant exam, it's the most distinguished credential that an accountant can earn. And it allows you to sign off on financial statements and provide many levels of expertise in accounting, finance, business law, economics, all that's involved in the accounting and finance aspect of a business. So, there are a lot of review courses out there right now. And as I went through my own journey, I found a huge void in really what those courses provided as far as really helping the candidates master the content. And that's the focus on my course. I mean, I learned how to memorize things and, I don't want to go too much into those other courses, but the focus here is what my course is going to be about, which is really helping candidates to master the content so that when they do pass the exam, they can actually go into their jobs or their clients' offices and provide that value that they need. And it's a real world application approach is what my course is going to do. I sat for exams 13 times and there's only 4 exams, but I sat 13 times, if that tells you anything about my struggle. So I had accumulated a lot of notes, a lot of flashcards, graphs that I had drawn while I was trying to pass. And I really want to make it possible for more CPAs of color to dominate the profession. Right now, Black CPAs or CPAs of color make up 1% of the profession. So Black women CPAs are probably a tenth of that. So a lot of days I'm head to the desk because it's a lot of work to create this course. There's a lot of content, a lot of things to do as far as writing out study guides and recording video tutorials. And some things in my business I outsource, but this is one thing that I cannot outsource because this is my expertise. So I have to put it on paper and do the videos and all of that good stuff because I really want it to be high quality, not a repeat of a lot of these, what I'll call big box courses that are out there. So apparently I didn't miss anything on social media. So I say all of that to say, it's okay if you need to take a break from social sometimes. It can be a lot, it can be overwhelming. And a lot of times there's building that happens offline. So if you need to go offline to get things in line, definitely do that. So, off my soapbox, moving on to today's episode. So, in the show notes, I'm going to put a link to my job interview guide for those of you who are looking for jobs or feel like you might be looking for a job in the future. It's a great tool to prepare you for an interview, how to ask the right questions without that awkwardness, and how to really own your career. And I tell people all the time who ask me for career advice that it's you that's responsible for your career, not your boss, not your parents, not your significant other. You are. There are people in your life, of course, who can give you advice and feedback, but the trajectory of your career is driven by you. So, with that being said, let's jump into the first question. So, somebody reached out and she wanted to get advice on how to basically how to assess a company's culture during an interview. I mean, we know that the interviews have those tell me about yourself and all the questions that the hiring manager asks about you, about your skill set, about the role. But as the candidate, there are things that you should be curious about when it comes to your potential employer. So when she asks, how do I figure out if it's not a toxic work environment or if I would like working there, my question is or my response is simple. Just ask. You can't really get a better answer from anywhere else than the people who live that culture every day. And as a candidate, is nothing to be nervous about. There are questions that you must ask during an interview. You probably should be asking more questions to them than they're asking to you. So, job seekers, let me just speak to y'all for a minute. Please stop. Stop going to these interviews acting like you don't belong there. Stop acting like you have to answer everything right and everything perfectly. If you're looking for a job or if you plan to do so in the future, you need to get my job interview guide. The link is in the notes, and I included some interview questions that you must ask if you really want to know what a company is like. You're going to be spending a lot of time in this place, so it's important that it's a decent environment where you can work and get things done without drama and all the other BS that comes with that. So there's a section in the guide where I address this. I provide some ways that you can pose this question to the hiring manager without feeling like you've insulted them or without making anybody comfortable. I mean, just saying something as simple as, what's it like working here? What do the employees say about working here? Maybe you've seen something online. I personally have been preparing for an interview or just curious about a company and went online and looked at some of the reviews. And I mean, you might see great things about the company. You might see bad things about the company. They may or may not be true. But I mean, just ask. If you're feeling froggy, a lot of times, like I do, I'll say something like, in doing my research, I noticed that a lot of employees have strong opinions about not feeling appreciated. Where is that coming from? I mean, I've done this many times, and I mean, this is all very subjective. So you have to look at, when you're looking at these reviews in particular, keep in mind that you might have disgruntled employees who left the company on a bad note and they just want to put out everything that they don't like about the company. Or you may have, I've seen reviews where the company themselves have put out these 5-star positive reviews trying to dilute some of the negativity from other reviews that have been posted. So either way, don't just look at one review like, okay, this company is horrible. Look for recurring themes. So if I see that one employee talked bad about the managers, okay, they might be feeling some type of way, chip on their shoulder, might have been let go, whatever. But if I'm looking on Glassdoor, for example, and I see all these comments all saying the same thing, that's a red flag. And I'll ask in the interview if I'm seeing that type of recurring theme that means there might be some type of conflict in the company. Can you speak to those? Or what's driving that? If I have to spend the majority of my day here, I don't want to spend my day soaking up some bad vibes, trying to duck and dodge a toxic work environment. And in asking the hope and the expectation is that you will get a transparent answer and an honest answer. Some people might not be truthful or might not be forthcoming when it comes to that, probably because they're on the way out the door. And I've actually been in interviews. I remember being on a panel and we were interviewing some candidates and interviewed a ton of people over like a span of several weeks. We probably interviewed 20, 25 people. And I remember this one interview because this was the only person out of those 25 plus people. There was only one person I can remember who asked about the work environment. And one of the ladies who was on the panel with me, and we happened to be working in a pretty bad work environment. So I was actually actively looking for a job at that time. But when the candidate asked the question, I deferred the question to the other person, one of the other people who was on the panel, and she started saying, "Well, yeah, we have a lot of fun here, and we just went out to lunch, and I mean, it was around the holidays, so she had talked about like we just had a holiday party, and she just went on and on and on, and I'm just looking down at my paper like, girl, stop. You know good and damn well that you were just complaining to me last week. You know what's going on in here. And to tell this candidate that this is a great environment, that everybody gets along and there's no drama, like, stop it." All of that was a lie. But for me, I prefer to be straight up about it because I want people to know what they're getting into. And I really want us to think differently about interviewing and really change the tide about what an interview is and what the purpose of it is. It it has little to do with your skill set. And I say that because the interview or the phone interview that you may have had or your resume that you submitted tells us as hiring managers a lot about your skill set and what you can do. So, when you get to an interview, it's more of a fit. It's more of you articulating the things that you've done and not really trying to figure out, can you do it? Obviously, you can do it. It's more so, can you do it at this company, in this environment, in the way that we want to get it done? So I really I like to be transparent about that because I want to allow the candidate to make the decision as to whether or not they want to join the organization, but at least give them the right information so that they can make an informed decision. The candidate is there to sell themselves. And I, as the hiring manager, should be there to sell the company, not to say something like, I've heard a lot, why should we hire you? Or what are you strong in? What do you bring to the table? It's more so, okay, let me tell you about this opportunity. This is why I think this is a great place for you. This, that, and the other. Because like I said, I, as the hiring manager, I've invited you here because I liked your resume, because you have a skill set or something that you can bring that can contribute to the goals that I'm working to achieve. And like I said, I've asked these very same questions, and I actually had a job where I left the interview like, well, damn, everything is wrong in this company. I literally asked, what's it like working here? What is the team saying about working here? And it was one of those situations like, when you ask, you have to be prepared for the answer, because the answer I got went something like, well, processes are non-existent. The entire accounting team has been let go because we need to rebuild. The close takes longer than it should. There's cash flow issues. And I'm sitting there like, WTF. But I appreciated the interviewer being upfront with that information, because I took that as an opportunity to create something out of nothing. Or, well, in this case, create something out of chaos. But it was an opportunity for me to show what I can do. Okay, I can fix this. I'm going to jump out the plane and build the parachute on my way down. So lying about the culture, lying about anything, in the interview is a huge red flag on both sides, as the candidate and as the hiring manager. Be honest with people. It saves people's time. It gives them the chance to make the right decision. So, again, as far as the interview goes, it's about the fit. I need to see you. I need to chop it up with you to see if I can deal with you and if you can deal with me. And that's why the candidates need to come to the table with a ton of questions about the role, about whatever the goals are. What value does this role bring to the organization? How can you in this position help this company achieve their objectives? But, the other thing with the interview, how is your demeanor? What kind of energy do you give off? And I mean, I can't say it enough because I get this question so much. You need to be interviewing that person that's sitting across the table from you just the same way as they are interviewing you. Come with questions beyond the job. What's a typical day like? A lot of these jobs these days, a lot of these corporations, there are no typical days. You might be doing, from an accounting standpoint, you might be doing month end one day and you might be filing boxes the next day to go off to storage to Iron Mountain or whatever. So, using my interview guide, you will definitely get the clarity that you need when you go into these job interviews, but it also shows that you've done your due diligence and that you're genuinely interested in the position. So, how do you assess a company's culture during an interview? You ask. And you hope that you will get that honest answer, that upfront answer, where you can really take that information and make the right decision about whether or not you want to join this organization. Okay. Next question. So this person was looking for advice on how to start a business while working a 9 to 5. The struggle for a lot of us. For me and for a lot of people I know. And earlier this year, I wrote an article that was published on Forbes, and it was called, or it is called, Do You Have What It Takes to Be the Boss? And I'm going to put the link to that in the show notes as well. But it was really a replay of some things that I dealt with as I tried to work a 9 to 5 and start not one, but many businesses. It is a battle for your time, a battle for your money, your resources, your energy. And what I talked about in the article is that not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody is built to lead people. So the first thing, if you're trying to start a business, side hustle, whatever you want to call it, while you're working a day job, is you have to assess your skill set. What are you strong in? What do you like to do? What is it that needs to be done that you don't like to do? Because you may have to outsource those particular responsibilities to somebody that's their area of expertise. But you also have to have a plan. Have a plan. Did I say have a plan? Trying to be a corporate superstar and being that hashtag female entrepreneur is a tough juggling act. And for those of us working mamas, throw in a kid or 2 or 3, a household, a spouse. I mean, it is a struggle. And me personally, I found myself running on fumes a lot of days. I have started multiple businesses while working in corporate. My husband and I and my daddy, we started a transportation company, Premier Elite Transports. I started real estate investment. I started the Working Mamas, of course. I started the Winston CPA Group. I mean, I can go all the way back to 2008 when I was an Avon ambassador. I mean, it's funny because the Winston CPA Group is actually about 10 years old. I started it when my son was a baby. And back in like 2008, 2009, and my old Facebook page is still linked to my account. But the crazy thing was, even back in 08, 09, 100% of my clients I got were through social media. And in 2009, that was Twitter. I mean, one of my first business besties is a lady who was also building her business, and she's doing well now. She's a major figure in her city, and she's been on a number of national platforms like Black Enterprise, and really just done some amazing things. And she sent me one of my first clients who was also building a business. And we've always supported each other online. I reached out to her to do some consulting work for the Working Mamas about a year ago, and we're still working on that. But I caught up with her about a month ago because she reached out to me. She was looking for a CPA and we discussed that. But that was only the second time in over 10 years that we've talked on the phone. Just able to catch up. How are things going? How are the kids? The conversation that we had, you would think that we've ran together on a daily basis. And I say all of that to say relationships. Relationships are everything. Sometimes it's people you know who can get you access to things that you might not have access to on your own. It's relationships who, those relationships will send business your way without you even having to market anything. They know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that needs your expertise. And I used to have people that I work with that were aware of things that I had going on. Say, "Oh, let me know if I can help or if I can invest," and things like that. But the thing with that is, speaking of the workplace, when you're trying to start I don't like to use side hustle, because if you treat your business like a side hustle, it's going to be a side hustle. Um your business, your startup business. Be careful with your startup business and your corporate or your professional workplace. And the other thing that you want to do is go back and revisit all of that paperwork you signed when you first started your job to make sure that you're not violating any codes of conduct, that there is no conflict of interest with what you're doing at your corporate job and what you're doing in your business. And you're just going to have to jump out there and do it. Definitely have a plan, but don't be like me and plan so much that you've overplanned and you spent so much time trying to write out processes and figure out how things are going to work that it's stopping you from starting. So before you jump in, make sure that you are realistic about your level of commitment to your business. Can you sustain trying to grow this business and still meet the expectations of your day job? I mean, at the end of the day and the beginning of the next, this is your paycheck. This can also be a funding source for your business that you're trying to create. So make sure that you are prepared to be responsible for everything, especially in the beginning when it's new, you're trying to figure it out. You might not have the capital to hire people or outsource people. There's a lot that you're going to have to do, that you're going to have to be responsible for. And it's going to take a lot of work. Not to say that it's not possible, because it absolutely is, and people do it every day, but just make sure that things like your back office is in order. If somebody wants to order your product or your service, make sure that there's a workflow where they can find you, where they can pay you, and that they can get in touch with you. And all those other minutia type of things will kind of fall into place. But there are a number of apps that you can use to automate parts of your business. You can get a virtual assistant. Um, just a ton of different things. There are funnels out here that you can build. There's ways you can automatically track business expenses, pay bills. So it's almost like having a checklist of things that you need to do and you need to have in line. Going back to me saying, have a plan, because there's going to be a lot going on. You are going to be stretched in so many different directions where you got to work late at the day job, but you know that you got to fulfill these orders before tomorrow and get them to the post office and shipped out the door. So it's going to be a lot, but the more organized you are, the more successful you will be. So, love to talk about that day in and day out. I am a firm believer in multiple sources of income. Your job can be great today. You can be cruising on blue water today and find yourself out of a job tomorrow. If there's something being downsized or something illegal or unethical happens, or if they just feel like, you know what, we're just going to automate Nicole's job because we don't need a human to do this. So, it's always important to look out for you, look out for your family, and have a plan if you desire to start a business while you are still working full time. And another one that I got that I just absolutely love to talk about is I got a question from a new grad. So, shout out to all the new graduates from college, but this person wanted advice on landing his first job. And that first job, just out of school, you 22, 23, such a critical and impressionable time. The hiring manager has to judge you on your grades, your attitude, and what your professors say. You may have had some internships, but there's no postgraduate, no professional experience to judge you on. So they are literally hiring you based on the things that I mentioned, your grades, your attitude, and recommendations. But that's largely based on your potential, what they think you can do, or what they think you can be groomed to do or developed to do. And because of that, it's important that you put in the work in class. I mean, that tuition statement alone is all the motivation you need to get some type of return on your investment. I thank Jesus, Mary, and Joseph that I went to undergrad at The Ohio State University and I graduated with zero debt. I went to school on a 5-year academic scholarship. So, shout out to the Young Scholars Program based out of Ohio. They have an amazing relationship with The Ohio State University. And if it was not for that program, I would have been burdened with debt when I walked across that hot ass stadium on June 13th, 2004 to get my accounting degree. So, definitely perform and put in the work in class. But also your attitude. Have y'all ever heard your attitude determines your altitude? That is so very true. And there's no need for me to elaborate on that. I'm going to sit that right here for y'all and keep moving to the next one. Your professors. Find a professor, at least one, who can provide a recommendation for you in these types of cases. Over your collegiate career, your experience, you'll have a lot of professors, assistants, lecturers, faculty members who will be critiquing your work. So try to get to know one of them. Visit office hours for help, obviously, but even if you pop in to say hello, elaborate on something that was discussed in class, and really just to let them see your face, because again, this goes back to relationships. The other thing I'll say is to those of you new graduates who are looking for your first job, make mistakes. Yes, I am telling you to make mistakes. Fail fast. Fail often. Learn from it and get better. Because, see, when you fail early, you're a rookie. You're adjusting. That's the expectation. But the expectation is that you won't be failing miserably on a consistent basis. So fail now when you're not 15 years into your career, still making rookie mistakes. Nobody is expecting perfection. And if you work somewhere that does, you need to find a new job and run the other way. But expecting to say 6 months ago or 2 years ago, Nicole was this and this, or Nicole needed to develop A, B, and C. And then you get to a point where you can talk about the progression from point A to point B. Well, 6 months ago, Nicole needed to work on her analysis skills, or she needed to dig deeper into revenue. And then 6 months down the line or a year from now, you're the the manager of the revenue cycle. So it's all about progression. It's okay to make those mistakes as long as you learn from them. So, episode 8 was the mid year review talk about assessing where you are in your career relative to where you expect it to be halfway through 2019. I shared in that episode excerpts from my actual performance reviews that I had back in my GE days. And it was just such a full circle moment for me because I read what my manager was saying about me in 2009, 2011, 2012, 2014, and that makes me proud because it's basically memorializing my own elevation. I was even reading some of it like, girl, like, stop it. Like, talking to myself 10 years ago, like, yes, everything my manager said was spot on. Even though when she was saying it back then, I probably side eyed her, like, no, you gave me a meets, but I should have got an exceeds. Like, even now, I think back to some of the attitudes and some of the side eyes I gave my boss, like, what you mean? I'm not number 4, but I'm number 3. Number 4 was like the top tier. Number 3 was like, you're almost there, but not yet. So I used to have this expectation, like, I'm in here killing it every single day, taking 3 highways to get here. I'm killing it. I better get and exceeds on everything. But when I look back on those performance reviews, I knew what space I was in and I knew what I was doing and what I needed to work on. I just wanted all the glory right then and there. So it's also really refreshing to see that the things that were developmental for me back then are much stronger attributes for me now. And that was intentional for me. I kept those reviews, or they were called EMSs. What did EMS stand for? Employee Management Service or something like that. But anyway, I kept them for a reason. I wanted to be able to have these moments in 2019 where I can look back at myself 10 years ago in those corporate streets and then reflect on how I was moving then versus how I move now. So that was just a really episode 8 was a really cathartic episode for me. I put it out thinking I was giving this career advice and helping people kind of figure out how to finish strong for the last 6 months of the year. But it was more so me having another one of my, what I call pivotal moments of personal growth. So it was just such a beautiful thing. So if you are a new graduate, even if you have been in your career for a few years and you just feel like, okay, it's time for me to step it up, or I know that I can do better on specific things, then it's definitely time for that. I mean, we are off of half-assing. We are off of just doing the minimum to get by. And it's just time to level up. I hate to use that word. It kind of needs to be put in the bucket with fleek and all these other temporary words, but it's really time for you to get on your shit and figure out how you can finish strong where you want to be before the end of this year. Because what I don't want is somebody to be creating a vision board or goals that were the exact same as the goals they had going into 2019. I mean, you just have to get to the point where you get tired of doing just the minimum and getting by. And if you're getting by on just the minimum, imagine what you can do if you put in 110%. So even when you think you're not being watched, you are. And it's really important to be consistent at what you do, to be good at what you do, have a feel for what you need to work on, what you need to improve on. Hopefully you have a manager in your corner or somebody who can give you that honest and candid feedback to help you really do well and be successful in your career. So I think I'm going to also put the link to the employee manager one-on-one template that I have. This is actually a template that I created to have conversations with my boss. I really wanted to know what she thought of me. I really wanted to know how she assessed my skill set and what I could do to improve. And so I started having these conversations with her. I initiated a meeting to talk about it, and then we ended up having a conversation every other week just to talk about progress, where I'm at, what I need to work on, what I'm strong in, all that good stuff, so that as I said earlier in this episode, so that I could continue to drive the bus and own my career. So I'll put the link to all of those in the show notes. But if you have a question about your career, about starting your business, about accounting, of course, about the CPA exam, definitely shoot me an email, hello@nickwinston.com. You can also find me on Instagram at nickwinston.com. I think I'm about to change my my social media handles because I don't even have the CPA on there. So I'm going to switch it to Nick Winston CPA. So that's it for this episode. I had a perfect amount of time because now my kids are knocking on the door. So I got to go do this mom thing. But I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Share it on social media, share it with your friends. The knocks are getting louder. So I will talk to y'all later. Y'all be good.